Dear brothers and sisters, today is the fifth Sunday in Ordinary Time. Every day is a gift from God. Every day is an opportunity from God given to you and to me that we may realize ourselves, that we may actualize ourselves, that we may become pencils in the hands of the Creator, that we may become instruments of change, that we may become agents of transformation in our world. If you look at the first reading today, you will see that it is the calling of the prophet Isaiah. From chapter 1 to chapter 5, we see that the prophet was sounding very harsh because the people were living in iniquity. The people were living in a very sinful way. In today's first reading, we see that the king Uzziah died. It may interest you to know that after King Solomon, the next best king of Israel after Solomon is King Uzziah. But Uzziah, towards the end of his life, he became a bad king because he usurped. Now, that was a case of usurpation. He was functioning as both king and priest. Because of that, God struck him with leprosy. Our first reading today began by Isaiah telling us about the exit of King Uzziah. Remember, as I say, that he lived in sin towards the end of his life. Then Isaiah tells us that God, Yahweh himself, was seated in the temple. Yahweh himself was seated in the Holy of Holies. Now, when you look at that, you see the exit of evil and the entrance of goodness. But that's not the point. The point is that Isaiah describes to us how awesome, how magnificent, how glorious the presence of God is. Remember that in Exodus chapter 33, verse 20, when Moses asked God, I want to see your face, God said to Moses, if you will see my face, you will die. So imagine Isaiah in his unclean lips. Isaiah, who was accusing himself of being a sinner, imagine that kind of person seeing God face to face. Is that not a great opportunity? Imagine yourself, let's bring it down. Imagine yourself standing shoulder to shoulder with any modern saint you can think about. Saint Mother Teresa, can you think about her? What about Saint John Paul II? Think about any saint you want. How will you feel standing beside a saint? If you can feel that, try to multiply your feeling to maybe 1,000 or 1,000,000 times. Then you will understand how insignificant, how unworthy Isaiah was feeling. But God noticed how he was feeling. That's why he sent the one of the seraphims to go and touch the mouth of Isaiah. You see, God gives us opportunity because he calls us. He is the one who is calling us. He is not calling us because we are perfect, but he calls us to perfect us. At that moment, the sins of Isaiah were forgiven. His sins were atoned for. He was purified. From unholiness, he became holy. And you can see that excitement in Isaiah that God changed his story. God transformed his situation from ugly to beautiful. So that when God said, whom shall I send and who will go for us? Isaiah said, me, I will go. As a response for God's goodness and forgiveness. Isaiah said, I will go, without even asking, what kind of mission is this? So Isaiah volunteered. One of the seraphim that came and touched the lips of Isaiah and changed his story and changed his status, changed his identity, reminds us of what we see in the gospel today. Luke chapter 5, beginning from verse 1 to 11. Jesus came at that moment and he saw Peter and his companions. He did not come there by accident. He came because he wanted to call them to join him in his mission, to join him in establishing the kingdom of God here on earth. So Jesus comes to Peter and he says to Peter, please, can I borrow your boat? There were two boats there. For me, when I reflected on that, I said, wow. So these two boats reminds me of the composite nature of every human being. We are all made up of body and soul. We too. Look at that. Two boats, body and soul. So Jesus comes and says to Peter, please, can I use your boat? You see the creativity of Jesus, which we may not talk about so much, but the fact is that we are called and we must learn from the one who calls us. And the first thing we learn from Jesus today is that sense of creativity. Every time that God calls us, He equips us with His grace. But we are the ones using our creativity, our rationality, cooperating with the grace of God. We are the ones to actualize what God has called us to do. When things became so difficult that people were pressing in on Jesus, He did not say, oh, I abandon this mission. I will not do it again because the pressure is so much. No, He became creative. That's why He decided to use the boat of Simon Peter, as a pulpit. Instead of standing with the people by the shore and being crushed, He decided to step inside the boat and He began to teach the people from the boat. After that, He thought about the generosity of Simon Peter. And He said to Peter, as a way to reward generosity of Simon Peter, He said to Peter, cast your net and you will catch fish. Peter said, oh my God. Oh, who is this man? Is he a fisherman? And Peter said to Jesus, we have worked all through the night. You see, human strength, you see, human intelligence, it can never lead us to success. The only time we can become successful in life is when we allow the Lord to direct us. Peter said to Jesus, we have walked through the night and we caught nothing. You see how human strength and human direction and human energy can lead us to, futility. And Peter was very obedient. He said to Jesus, if you insist, I will follow your command. What did Peter do? Peter cast his net and wow! The fish that the net caught was so much that they could not carry it alone. So they called their companions, sharing. Don't be a selfish person. Be generous. Be generous. You see, they walk through the night as human beings. We can walk with our human energy. We will never succeed unless we allow the Lord to direct us, unless we allow the Lord, who is the one who calls us, to give us the right compass in order for us to arrive at our destination. And they caught a lot of fish. And they were so happy. Now, Peter, realizing that, oh, this is a miraculous event, he said to the Lord, go away from me, I am unworthy. Remember the first reading, Isaiah also said the same thing. I am unworthy. Peter said the same thing, I am a sinner. And Jesus said, oh, calm down, calm down. I did not call you because you are a saint. I called you because you are a sinner, so that I will make you a saint. And Peter said, okay. Then he listened to Jesus, and Jesus said, from today, I will change your identity. From today, I will change your story. From today, I will change your status. No longer will you be a fisherman, but you from today will become fishers of men. You see, Jesus entrusted the responsibility. This is the calling of Peter, James, and John, and other disciples. So Jesus entrusted responsibility to them. What was their response? St. Luke tells us that they left everything and followed him. Detachment. If you really want to respond to the call of God, because every day we wake up is a calling from God. Every day we wake up is an opportunity from God. If you really want to respond to this calling of God, You must learn to abandon your past in the past. You must learn to detach yourself from anything vicious. You must learn to detach yourself from anything negative. You must learn to detach yourself from even the mistakes you have made in the past. Because if you keep on living in the past, you will never live in the present and you will never become fruitful or successful in whatever God has called you to be or to do. St. Paul tells us in the second reading today that he was the last to be called. It doesn't matter the time you were called. The most important thing is that Jesus has given each and every one of us opportunity to walk with him because he loves us. He gives us opportunity because he trusts us. He knows that each and every one of us has got beautiful, important, massive potentials inside us. What is service? Our calling, our vocation, all of us, our vocation is to serve. Service is using our talents, our gifts, using them to touch the lives of other people positively. As we celebrate this day, let us remember that God, who is transcendent, became immanent just to reach out to us. Humility of God. If you really wish to be a positive, productive instrument and agent in the hands of God, we must learn to be humble. We must learn to be humble because humility means creating space for God, allowing God to direct us just as He directed Peter, and they were successful. May God bless you.